we'll just see what happens. So, welcome back to the show. Welcome. How you doing, Wade?
Doing good. How are you doing, Burl?
Not bad. Did you have a good non-recording podcast break?
Yeah. I got lots of stuff done, I think. Actually, that might not be true. Just eager to get back to it.
So am I. Looking forward to it. Get a bunch more episodes coming this season. So I think we should just dive right in to talk about what our next episode's going to be here. Today's episode's about Elvis in Concert, which is the 1977 CBS posthumous TV special. Is that how you would say that? Is that probably the best way to say it?
Yes, that's a good way to put it. This was aired October 3rd, 1977. As you said, on the CBS network. It was their 7 p.m. Central offering that night. Or, 8 p.m. if you live where you live. This went up against, on ABC, a show called San Pedro Beach Bums, which I'd never heard of in my life. I had to look up.
Yeah, I've never heard of that either.
Did not ring a bell. It is definitely something I've never seen before, but it seemed to be this kind of like slice of life, shot on film, 30-minute sitcom type of deal. Real Chico and the Man vibes. And then on NBC, they had the latest Little House on the Prairie.
So that's what you watched that night? Because I know you're a big Laura Ingalls fan.
I certainly watched a lot of Little House. There's no doubt about it. Right. But if we had a TV on in our house on October 3rd, 1977, I can guarantee you it was on Elvis in Concert. It starts with, this is great, that kind of conga-heavy theme song with the spinning CBS special logo.
Oh, yes. I love that. Yeah, it takes you back.
Yeah, it's the ones they used to have before the Charlie Brown specials.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's the one.
Just seeing it evokes this wistful melancholy, which is perfect for Elvis in Concert.
Right. Well, you knew something special was coming when you saw that. I literally said it right there on the screen, and rotating right at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
This special is a document of his last tour, but not necessarily his last shows. He did 5 more shows after what we see on this special.
Right, which I think part of the reason people think that they are his last shows is because Vernon says that in the special at one point.
Yeah, he does. And we can get to that, when we talk about the Vernon postscript. But he does say that. And I think that's like the source of that information.
Which just tells you how much he knew what was going on behind the scenes. He didn't even know which show was the last show. But that's Vernon for you.
Couple interesting things in the opening. So basically what this depicts is 12 songs live in concert from this tour, and certainly a lot more testimonials and man on the street stuff than in the previous specials.
Right. I would call that padding. I think they were really trying to pad out this show.
Right.
I would think, and we can get into it a little bit here, but I think CBS wanted to do the show. They kind of decided they wanted to do it early June of 77. I think they kind of announced it. And just a few weeks later, they're recording a couple of his shows. And I can only imagine they were, at best, disappointed at what they got.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, is that greenlighting a Elvis live special, it seems like kind of a no-brainer as far as TV programming goes. Because you had the 68 Comeback special, which was the Singer special, which was a huge deal. And then, obviously, Aloha was an enormous deal. And this is only 4 years later.
Yeah, that's what I was going to point out. There's only 4 years difference. So I'm thinking some executive is like, oh, well, we could get Elvis. I just saw some footage from that Aloha special. He'd be great. Why not get Elvis on there? And then they get this footage back of him. Like, ooh, maybe this was not a good idea. And I think Elvis was a little disappointed that he did not get more time to get himself in shape or go on whatever crazy diet he wanted to go on, or inject himself with, was it like urine from pregnant women, whatever he was doing to lose weight for Aloha. So I don't know. I don't know if any of that stuff would have worked, though, at this point.
Right. But I think the impression a lot of people have is that, he really let himself go. Not really acknowledging that is kind of what Elvis looked like between projects back then. he would have to film That's the Way It Is or something, and very image conscious. The narcissism in him wouldn't allow himself to like appear on camera for posterity in a subpar condition. Look at all the movies he made in the 60s. And in between those, he would just go home and eat meatloaf every day for 8 months.
Yeah, he would certainly do that. At best, he would eat meatloaf every day for 8 months. Like, that was the good stuff he was doing for himself.
Sure.
So, and I think a lot could be said is he just has what we have referred to as like prednisone face. Just like that really heavy, wide face. Like he's retaining a lot of water kind of thing. Which is, probably due to all the medications he was on.
But the thing is, back then, whoever greenlit that concept, there wasn't the internet back then. It's not like somebody sent him a video of what Elvis looks like right now. So I see it as entirely possible that the camera crew would be like set up, ready to go already before anybody really knew what they were going to get.
Yeah, and chances are they just talked to him on the phone, and then they put up cameras at the first concert. I think the first one was in Omaha, Nebraska on June 19th, and then Rapid City, South Dakota on June 21st. And I think that he shows up in Omaha, probably rolls off the plane, and then goes directly to backstage, and then goes on stage, and then that's what they got. So they probably didn't know what was going on until right then, and they're like, oh my goodness, oh boy, we got ourselves a mess.
Here's the thing, though, devil's advocate, Elvis was still, like, by 77, what do you think he was doing, like 150 dates a year, 200 dates a year? I mean, he was working really hard.
He was certainly out on the road quite a bit.
But every single one of these shows were in places like the Assembly Hall in Champaign, where the Fighting Illini play. And you think about the size of that place, and that's a big-ass show. And this was before, like, Jumbotrons. So Elvis didn't necessarily have to be ready for his close-up. He just had to be able to physically stand on stage and still sing. And who's really going to tell from like a distance how bad he looks?
Right. Yeah, you got the first 5 to 10 rows of middle-aged to elderly women who he probably already has hypnotized. And all he really has to do is come out, he has to have the hair looking good, make sure the corset is tightened up at that point, and then it's just to start throwing scarves until they're in a frenzy. And the people up in the cheap seats, they're just like, yeah, we saw this little white figure moving back and forth on stage.
And definitely the plus side of the white suit is that people in the back row could tell which one was him. But downside of the white suit, not very forgiving.
This is also true. The other thing is the first 5, 6, 7 minutes of the special, there's some man on the street stuff, but there's also all the concessions that you can get. So a lot of that is, hey, here's this giant image, here's this poster of the person you're going to see. So that's also a way of sort of like offsetting that. This is what you're here to see. And then, obviously if you're 25 rows back, you're like, oh, okay, I guess that's pretty close.
That's the thing, though, the souvenir bit, which is extended. It goes through the souvenir vendor's entire sales pitch. And I was just wondering about its inclusion in the special and what the special would have been had Elvis lived versus how it turned out. And I think you would have every reason to believe that had Elvis lived, this just would have been like all songs.
Sure. Yeah. There would have been.
Like Aloha.
Sure. They would have filmed more dates to get better performances and then padded that out. For sure. There would have been a lot more of that. But yeah, it was really weird. That guy, you do hear his whole sales pitch. Although, I watched it twice and I don't think they mentioned how much a straw boater was going for. And there were certainly a bunch of them in this special. So I was like, how much were those going for? I would have gotten a styrofoam boater. I don't even know if it was actually straw. Yeah, but it was styrofoam.
Such a ridiculous thing somebody would buy.
The 70s were weird.
Also interesting about the vendor spiel, no t-shirts at all.
Yeah, it was all like posters and picture books and stuff.
Pendants and charms. There's an Elvis belt buckle that was for sale.
Oh man, I'd kill for one of those. That'd be nice. It seems like real carny stuff.
Exactly.
I wonder if they had Coke mirrors, like Elvis Coke mirrors.
In the parking lot, there's games of chance where you can win those.
I'm shocked there isn't, though.
Right.
Like you get a stuffed Elvis kind of thing, or a stuffed teddy bear dressed in a jumpsuit with like sunglasses on it, that kind of stuff.
Do you think the Colonel ever pitched for every date in the parking lot there'd be like a Ferris wheel and then like bumper cars set up?
I would be shocked if he didn't. That's right up his alley. It's exactly the kind of thing he's into. He would have known that sort of stuff, how much money, how much revenue he could have got from that. And the thing is, he would have taken 100% of that. Mm-hmm. Like, none of that would have gone to Elvis. It would have been his stuff because it would have been his little side business, his side hustle. Everybody's got to have a side hustle.
I think the inclusion of this bit, this is how I think it happened. Like you say, the special needed padding. I think it was kind of editorializing by the filmmakers, kind of like Elvis is nothing more than a saleable image. And I think that the Colonel approved it because the Colonel saw this segment as being informational, as to like, oh, you can buy merchandise of Elvis and this is how much it costs. And then the Colonel being like, thinking nothing of what the segment would mean in this context, but thinking like, oh yeah, well, this will save me having to print out forms of a price list or something. People who's ever watching this, like, oh, yeah, well, that's how much this stuff costs.
It's also a reminder of how much cash to bring to the next Elvis show.
Exactly.
I'm going to need a picture book. That's $5. The pendant's $3.
Right.
They're all pretty decent prices, too.
But good for 77 though? Like, I don't know, man. How much did stuff cost then?
I don't know. But $3 and $5, I bet that would come out to like 15 and like 20. Or 20, 25, 20, 30 bucks. Right. Which is not nothing, but it's a forever memento of seeing the king of rock and roll. So really, twice that it'd be worth it, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I wish they'd have showed a picture of the belt buckle, because $10 for a belt buckle in 1977 seems like a major outlay.
It's just the buckle, too, like no belt, probably.
I would imagine just the buckle.
Provide your own belt. Kind of thing. Yeah, you got to go to like a leather store and have your waist measured.
Right.
Get an awl to poke the belt holes in. I'm really going too much into this. I think if you bought your own belt, I think you know how it works. So.
Or a leather punch.
Sure. Yeah, probably a leather punch.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what that's for, right?
I'm guessing. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else you'd use it for.
The hell else are we talking about? Oh,
I don't know. We always lose it.
We lost it. Here's something you sent to me a few days ago, and I had contemplated, was that Elvis seems to have a new logo for this special, and I've never seen it anywhere but this special.
Yeah, it's an Elvis in concert logo, and it looks very much like the Van Halen logo.
Yeah.
With the wings on the sides, and it is pretty damn cool.
It's very cool.
Now, if that was the belt buckle, I would build a time machine just to go back and get that.
Yeah, I would definitely proudly sport that as a belt buckle. Absolutely. But, here's the thing. That was Elvis's logo in 77. First Van Halen album was 78. But when did the Van Halen logo first appear?
I don't know. I'm assuming you have an answer to this.
I don't. I don't know if it predated like getting signed or what. Probably not.
Well, here's the thing. I think it would be hard-pressed to find Elvis's people stealing a logo from some Southern California band that was regional at the time. Probably not out on a tour or anything like that. So who knows? Or it just might have been like a look that was very popular at the time.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't take too much of a stretch of the imagination to think that two people could have like a similar idea at the same time.
Yeah, and they might have ripped it off from like the Chrysler LeBaron or something like that. There might have little wings on it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's very cool. I'm just saying the Elvis logo is like super cool, and I love it.
Yeah, tattoo idea, I think. Maybe.
It's not bad. Not
bad. There you go. If you're looking for it, we should put it up on the Instagram page.
Yeah, definitely. Somebody has to have that.
So, I don't know, one of the things, like talking about all the straw boaters and stuff, all the merch, definitely talked to a bunch of fans during this, which a lot of cutaways, even cutting away during songs to testimonials, like numerous times. As we said, I think probably to cover up poor performances, and also just to pad out the set a little bit. But there's definitely some good stuff. There's a guy chewing bubblegum and like blowing a bubble and like goes all over his face. There's some like really weird footage in here that's shocking. There's a woman that does confess that she's been to Elvis's house and she's touched the gate, and that has excited her in a way that she's scared what's going to happen when she sees him and she's hoping that there's an ambulance standing by. And I thought that was pretty funny.
That was intense. There's also this segment with tornado victims, a married couple, and the woman looks relatively normal, 70s, but normal. But the dude has got this insane adaptation of the Elvis haircut. Very obviously dyed black. It could be a wig, but he's got the sideburns and big sunglasses and kind of a wild shirt. It's a very much a Elvis, that's the way it is look. But they tell the story about how a few days prior, their house was destroyed by a tornado, which put them in the hospital. And the guy had only just gotten out of the hospital with like a ton of stitches, but we're still coming to Elvis. So that pretty amazing segment.
That's how powerful a performer he is. He's just, people wanted to see him so bad. And even the woman, I don't remember which song they cut away during, where she gives her testimonial. She says something to the effect of, she had seen when she was young, Elvis kissing a young girl who had polio. She's like, I would trade places with that girl.
My favorite too, it's the mother and son. And I wrote this down because I thought this was great in the mother describing Elvis. And she says, he's honest and he's got vibes. And I couldn't put it better myself, for real.
I think that might have been the in-concert tagline.
Right.
I think they stole that. Like, Elvis, in concert. He's honest. Right. He's got vibes. Yeah, and the guy who lived at home with his mom or something and worked at the post office.
Oh, that's another one I wrote down. It says, I still live at home and I have a fairly good job at the post office. It's like the first things he says.
Yeah. Well, this is 1970, so it probably was pretty good back then.
Right. And then just declaring that he spends all of his money seeing Elvis shows, which probably at the time seemed pretty sad. But I think about it now and I'm like, right on, dude.
That's the way to absolutely. Like, what else are you going to do? Right. You got to get out of the house. Are we going to mow the lawn? No. Yeah. You're going to go see Elvis. Right. Pick up after yourself.
But yeah, also all these testimonials are like intercut with like that kind of standard concert film trope of showing the crew setting the stage up and stuff. Did you catch the crew member with the Yes Tour shirt?
Oh, I missed that. Oh, man. I love me some prog rock.
Yeah. So imagine that guy is probably still alive. He like worked on the Yes Tour and he worked on an Elvis tour.
Oh, yeah. He's fine. He's fine.
I'm sure he's
still
doing
kicking.
Great.
Yeah, right. He's still doing it all, man. I will say they do have like the satin jackets. Vernon winds up wearing it later with the Elvis patch on. It's like a red jacket with the Elvis patch and like a TCB patch on the shoulder, which is pretty slick too. There's a couple of crew members wearing that. So
it's like a red satin jacket with white piping.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I dig it.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, I like it too. Also in the testimonials, once again, we hear from the British Elvis fans.
They're a big part of his fan base, although he never toured there.
But there's that whole bit, and that's the way it is, where we go to England and to a Elvis convention.
Right. Oh, right, with like the Teddy Boys or something, right?
Right,
or
exactly.
They're called. Yeah.
So, like, I'll have to ask longtime listener Mark Longden, Elvis really big in England? Because he's British. I mean, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Would he know?
Are you expecting him to answer now? Okay, let's pause, and then we'll see if Mark, go ahead and answer.
You know what? Not that big a deal. Honestly, we preferred Cliff Richard.
Okay, well, thank you for that. There you go.
Of course.
All right, glad we got to work that in.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mark.
But I did have also for the mother and son, like the son says, he's like, I've been an Elvis fan since age 3, and I appreciate that he respects his mother. That's like the only thing he has to say. And I'm thinking with this mother and son, it's like, it's just you two, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
It's always just been you two.
Yeah, on the run.
Yeah, that's
on
that's
the lam.
Sweet. That's sweet. Very tight bond.
So I guess we should probably talk a little bit about the set list a little bit.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, he comes out, you've got the 2001 that he walks out to. That you can see he knows exactly what part of it he wants, like what beat he wants to walk out on. Because he kind of like makes okay, now I'm ready to go kind of thing, and goes out. And then comes out and does, I'm going to say, pretty weak CC Rider.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the best CC Rider I've ever seen. Looks like he's having fun, though.
I mean, he's doing okay. But I think the thing that I notice the most in these songs, There's a couple of tunes that he really kind of gets behind, and the ones that you kind of tell he wants to sing. And everything else, it's a phoned in version. Like, I've done this a million times. Let's just get it over with. We got to get through this. Which is like pretty much all of his old stuff. Teddy Bear and Don't Be Cruel, Jailhouse Rock, all of those, he's just kind of like, all right, let's go Hound Dog even. He is just like barely singing them. Most of the time, it's just him at the edge of the stage. And this is something I noticed. It's Charlie Hodge with tons of scarves. And he's literally just flinging them into the crowd.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, the scarf flicking.
Which I think, and maybe you'll agree with me, I think he's wearing some sort of corset, so he can't really like bend down. Because even 4 years ago, like Aloha, he would like bend down, go hand a scarf, maybe kiss somebody in the audience, kiss a hand, something. Somebody kind of put their arms around him. There was like no touching, hardly at all. And he is completely standing up. At some points earlier in his career, he'd go down to one side and like karate or anything. There was like no movement like that. He just seemed so confined in that suit. It was like really restricted movement, it seemed like.
Right. Maybe not 100% for the vanity of it, but just for the logistics of being able to get into the suit, you know?
And maybe he was scared that that suit was going to tear up, baby.
Yeah, he never got low. But then again, when I was 42, I wasn't getting low either.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I've heard.
But, I thought this was weird in the set list. It goes CC Rider, then it goes That's All Right. And those, I always thought Elvis shows were like one or the other as an opener. Because they're such similar songs to do them like back to back. It's kind of weird. I will say, and That's All Right, though, was Elvis actually plugged in for that? He's like playing the acoustic guitar. It kind of sounds like he is plugged in when the song starts.
He might have been, or maybe just mic'd for it. I don't know. I will say that we both watched this on YouTube, and the quality is pretty bad. So there's some stuff that I think I just maybe didn't catch or whatever. But no, I don't think he was plugged in.
The main VHS rip that's on YouTube, there's definitely clearer versions of this available, but it's just like the raw footage from the special. It's not as it aired.
Right.
And it definitely, as the video goes on, it gets better. But like the early part is, you know, one of my favorite things, like liminal horror vibes, the kind of video glitches and faces kind of melting and stuff. I love that shit.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah.
It's great, but it looks horrible.
It does.
Like for
does.
quality, to be able to go like, oh, he's obviously plugged in. I don't know, maybe he might not have been. But I would say that this, as far as like a live set list of his, obviously there's a bunch of stuff you've heard before, but it's a pretty weak set list. The songs on it are fine. Maybe it's just his performances are so bad for most of them. Him phoning in all the early stuff. I will say the first one that he really kind of sings is You Gave Me a Mountain. And you're 20 minutes into the special.
The thing is, though, I think the circumstances under which this special was released kind of dictated what the set list was going to be for the show. Because I think they're putting in all the 50s nostalgia stuff, because I think that would have been like very much in demand immediately following Elvis's death. It's like when Michael Jackson died, everybody's like, oh, well, there was Thriller, and then he stopped making music, as far as like the public was concerned. So that stuff was foregrounded in the special for that reason. And the other stuff, I just think they happen to be excellent vocal performances that they're like, well, we got to put that in because he's like fucking killing it. Like, You Gave Me a Mountain, man, he's just all over that one.
But, you know, he's got a lot of warm up to it. Plus, I think his show at that time probably was just shorter. I think he probably, by that time, I think he was kind of tired. I don't think he really liked doing all the touring as much as he was, because it was just pretty endless for him. And sometimes he's doing 2 shows back to back, doing a day show and then a later show. So I think he's just like, well, here's the 45, 50-minute version of my show. If that. The whole thing, what's the runtime on this? It's just under an hour, right?
Right. It fit into like an hour block
right.
of, old TV.
And, the first 7 or 8 minutes of it, you're just finding out what they're selling at concessions. And then there's like Vernon at the end. So, 35 to 40 minute set. I mean, that's probably what you're getting. But other highlights of it, I think You Gave Me a Mountain is really good. And
just briefly about You Gave Me a Mountain, really listen to the lyrics this time. And just like from the singer's perspective, I'm just like, hey, maybe you are the problem. It's like all these bad things are happening to him. And the first one, it's something like his parents laying something heavy on him or whatever. Oh, it's because the kid's mother died in childbirth. And the father was mad at the kid. And it's like, well, the kid didn't do it. I mean, really, come on. But, like everything else he describes in the song, it's like, there's probably two sides to this story, buddy.
Yeah, I like that. I like getting a hot take. A hot take on You Gave Me a Mountain. That's great. You heard it here first, man.
Sure.
Maybe he gave himself the mountain. He should change it to This Time I Gave Me a Mountain. Like, that would be a better title. But yeah, I think the only really other standout song that he's singing is the gospel tune, How Great Thou Art.
Which, even without the context of it being a posthumously released special, I just think it's a fine performance of How Great Thou Art, and probably one of the best things I've heard Elvis sing, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, in 77. I don't know. I think if you would have heard him sing that half a dozen years earlier, but oh, wow, that's really good. But when you put it next to all these other performances, it really stands out. But as far as like if you put it next to anything off of like Aloha or MSG or any of that stuff, it's fine. But it definitely is a standout of this set and of these performances. So.
Absolutely. And just like the effort he puts into it. And I don't know, is there kind of a nice way to put this? Is there such thing in singing of bigger body, bigger sound? You know what I mean? Like Pavarotti.
Maybe a little bit. Yeah, maybe just a touch.
Just to achieve that amount of power that he puts into the end of it. Like Meatloaf.
Yeah, it's like you're a larger resonator sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. So this was just something that was in his arsenal that, he didn't have when he was like a younger singer. Because you could say he really sings the heaven out of that one.
Oh boy, here we go. Yeah, the HE double toothpick, he sings out of it, yeah. But other than that, I don't know. I think the weirdest thing that happens towards the end, maybe not the weirdest, but one thing that happens towards the end is that he has to get the lyrics out for My Way. And he'd been doing that song for years, hadn't he? It's not like the first time he'd done it.
But then again, at the same time, I don't think it's necessarily his job to have every song lyric memorized,
I might disagree with you. If you were a touring performer who is a singer, it's not like he's doing like a piano solo in the middle and he's not even dancing anymore at this point. Unless what was it? Is it Hound Dog? Where he just this ridiculous little like shimmy at the end of it. It's like really weird looking. I would say if he was much older and just couldn't remember them because of age and then having stuff on a teleprompter. But I don't know, it's kind of his gig. It's kind of his job to know the lyrics. I would get it if it was early on and he hadn't done it ever. It was like the first concert or first tour he was doing it. He was using it as a crutch or something. But I think he'd been doing that song for 4 or 5 years, I would think. Something like that, so.
At least since the early 70s.
Yeah, and then they just start cutting stuff away. Like, they ended on Can't Help Falling in Love.
One of the most famous piece of footage that a lot of people associate with the special that's not actually in the original broadcast was that sequence of Elvis singing Unchained Melody unaccompanied, just like him on piano. It's not in the special.
But I think it's because he looks so bad. Like they just didn't want to put it in there.
Elvis definitely looks bad. There's no doubt about it in this special. But everybody's kind of grading him on the curve here because his physical beauty was so overwhelming, not even that long ago before they started filming this, that the shock of seeing him this old traumatized a nation. But you take this exact physical specimen as he was in 1977 and put him into like a 2024 Walmart, and you had everybody in the Walmart have to participate in a single elimination Olympics in the parking lot. And I'm telling you, Elvis is finishing in the like top 25%.
Sure. Now, here's the thing. If you put him into a 2024 Walmart, though, what section do you think he'd go to first? Like, where do you think he's headed?
Probably electronics. Looking for flat screens, probably.
I think he'd be fascinated by flat screen TVs. I do think that's true. Yeah. I don't know. I think he would also enjoy some of the snack foods.
At a Walmart?
Don't they have food there sometimes at Walmart?
Oh. I thought you were talking like a snack bar or something.
Oh, no, like just the foods, like the snacks.
One thing I always see at my Walmarts, they all have like Subways in them. And I'm thinking, how low does it have to be? Not only like you work at a Subway, but you work at a Subway that's inside of a Walmart.
Yeah, it'd be pretty bad. So I wonder if they have an actual drive-through section, but for people on the scooters. So it's a separate line.
That would be great.
That'd be great. Get Subway on the phone, and let's see if we can get that happening for them.
Sure.
It probably would eliminate a lot of problems.
That's like a $40,000 idea.
Yeah, it's like a $20 idea. I'll take the $20 though. I buy a couple straw boaters with it. I'll get you one.
Yes, styrofoam for me, please.
Okay, yes, styrofoam straw boaters. 2 of those coming right up.
Yeah, built to last.
All in all, I think it's great that we have this. Unbeknownst to CBS, they were getting literally some of the last footage of Elvis ever in concert. Mm-hmm. And it's a great time capsule. It's very sad to kind of see it, but ultimately, you're glad that you get to see it.
Yeah, but I was always kind of dreading watching the special, and I don't think I've ever watched it in its entirety before we decided to do it. My takeaways from it is that he seems to be enjoying himself. He's in fine voice, obviously going through a lot of problems. Let's just say, though, instead of this was Elvis at 42, let's say that this was Elvis at 62. And the exact same special, just looking the same way. I think this would be considered a final triumph of and then he died shortly after. But only the fact that he's 42 is that people keep tripping on it. Can't get over it.
Yeah. I have 2 things I'm going to add. So I have this idea that if I could change one thing about the special, is that he was wearing the gypsy jumpsuit, the choker, and the puffy sleeves. So I think that's just, I don't know. I just like that jumpsuit for some reason. I just get a kick out of it. And I don't know, if you were to change the jumpsuit, where would you go? Would you think you'd go red, the Black Beauty, or whatever they call it? What would you do? What would you go with?
Well, the thing is, I think the big mistake is that he just went with a white jumpsuit, especially the Aztec sun, a.k.a. the Mexican sundial suit that he's wearing. Because this big round logo on the front just underlines his rotundness. Something more kind of V-shaped, I think, would have been a better call. Not necessarily white. And then to go with a different color jumpsuit would differentiate this special from Aloha. It's why wear such a similar outfit that you wore in Aloha, where you look fantastic, to wearing that now for a TV special where you don't look nearly as good. My conclusion is I think definitely the Gypsy. I'll agree with you on that. Or, I don't know, the Black Beauty or something.
Or purple. Purple would be good.
Sure.
For the royal kind of Elvis thing, the king of rock and roll. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I just think that's maybe why I wanted a different jumpsuit, because I'm not going to say I hate the sundial or the Aztec sun or what we call it. Yeah, I just think it should have been something different. And then I was thinking, had Elvis lived, had this come out, I think there would have been a lot in the papers about what's going on with Elvis.
You're right.
And do you think that if he had lived just a couple months longer, this had come out, that it might have gotten him into treatment and saved his life? Do you think he wouldn't have liked the way he looked? Or do you think he was so stuck in his ways that he would have just been yeah, I'm fine. It's everybody else that's got the problem.
I don't think this footage ever would have been released had Elvis lived. I think they would have reviewed it, and I think Elvis would have watched it privately and then would have been oh, okay, I need to really take this seriously. I think it would have kind of scared him straight, but privately, had he lived. And I think they would have reconvened a couple months later and had a much more fit Elvis. That's just the way he worked.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll never know. I don't think it would have really done much to him. I think he was so deep in it. I think something physical would have had to have happened to him, and then some doctor would have had to put him on a detox thing. And who was going to do that to him? Nobody. He would have just left. Anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. It's still worth a watch. I would definitely say it's weird. I would say watch that and then watch the Unchained Melody right after it while wearing a straw boater.
Yeah.
And doing lines off of an Elvis Coke mirror while wearing your Elvis belt buckle.
Oh man, the Elvis Coke mirror with the Elvis wing logo.
That'd be great. I would totally take
man.
that. Yeah.
I'm all about it.
Yeah. I'd get back into Coke just for that. Or into Coke, period, just for that. So I think before we move on, we've got to talk about Vernon at the end of this.
Which, this is the most Vernon footage I've ever seen in my life.
It's probably the most talking I've ever seen him do.
So at some point during the show, Elvis introduces Vernon from the stage. I don't know if he did that every night. That would be weird, right?
I think he just introduced him probably because A, he knew it was a television thing, and then B, he said he hadn't been on tour with him for quite a while.
And also introduces Ginger from the stage.
Yep. And then quickly rethinks that. He's like, that's enough. Right. Yeah, that's enough of that. No more applause for her.
Yeah, after the special, we watch some footage of Vernon from June 77. So right around when these concerts were filmed, where he's interviewed. And just a couple of takeaways from what Vernon is saying here. He's talking about how humble Elvis is, how Elvis is like the same guy that he was pre-fame. Mm-hmm. And then also just kind of drops in that Gladys dies in 58, and then Vernon remarries in 1960, and basically implies that he's like kicked out of Graceland once that happens.
But their properties join up together, so he's not far.
Right. It's like, I moved out when I remarried. And it's like, knowing Vernon, it's like, Vernon, you got kicked out.
Well, I think it wasn't that Vernon got kicked out. I think Dee was not let in. I think that's more of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because he did not like that woman.
And then also, so he tells that story, and then he's just starts going on about how honest the Colonel is.
And probably paid to do so.
I don't think Vernon was really smart enough to know the difference.
Well, they never really dealt with anybody else.
Right.
You know? I think they'd been with him for so long, they just figured, like, well, that's just how it is, because that's how he tells us it's supposed to be. So he's honestly telling us that he gets half the money, and that's just how it's going to be from now on. So,
well, I just think Vernon needed a strong personality in his life, and I think that's what Gladys was until she died, and then I think the Colonel kind of weirdly filled that role for Vernon going forward. The person who, like, told him what's what, you know, what opinion to have on something, what to do if he's just like standing around doing nothing, you know. I think the Colonel filled that role for him.
Probably.
And then following this footage, we see Vernon from the Graceland offices in October 77, which is maybe the saddest recorded footage I've ever seen.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think the worst part about it is they didn't there's like a window behind him, and there's just obviously people just milling around behind him. Like, they didn't have the sense to say, hey, we're going to film something here, so don't be doing that. It's not that distracting, but I just sort of noticed it. But all of those letters, and I'm sure that's just a fraction of what they received.
Sure.
Do you think that they did respond to most of them? He claimed that they were going to try and get back to people, but...
Well, I have no idea how that stuff worked back then, especially in the Elvis camp. Answering fan mail? I mean, that's such a big thing to take on, especially at Elvis's level.
Yeah, but you got to figure, like, what would the postage be just to reply to all of those?
Yeah.
I mean, tens of thousands of dollars, I would think. It's a lot of mail. It's a lot of mail.
Well, the Colonel probably told Vernon about self-addressed stamped envelopes. So.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Probably.
And he claims that what you saw was his last performance, which is not true at all.
But like I said, I don't know if he knew the difference. Like, I don't know if he knew the logistics of how tours worked. It didn't really always seem like he was the guy really in charge of stuff, so...
I guess they didn't necessarily run the footage by him before they put the special together. Like, oh, we got to get Vernon's opinion.
And the other thing is, for all he knew, it was the last... I think he probably was just like a misnomer. He probably meant it's the last filmed concert of Elvis. That's probably what he kind of meant by it, but who knows? Semantics, right?
It is. But, once again, Vernon not being able to stick the landing.
Nope. Yeah, you go a big whiff on Vernon's part. But
right.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, I don't know. I think probably time to move on. We got to get to this fun stuff. But definitely, if you have not seen this, it is on YouTube and worth checking out. The big highlights being How Great Thou Art and You Gave Me a Mountain. And then... if you want some goofiness, just the beginning of it, the first 7-8 minutes of it. And then also, I don't know, I think that dance during Hound Dog is so weird. definitely, check it out.
Definitely give it a spin. Just try to get over what he looks like. I know it's hard for a lot of people, but I think you'll find the special musically solid.
There you go. And solidly musical. Well, I think that kind of wraps up us talking about Elvis in concert. So I think it's time to move on to the next part of the show. But before we do that, I think we need to talk about our new sponsor. Wade, do you want to tell us about the sponsor for this week's show?
Of course. Tonight's sponsor is Disposo, the disposable clown service. Need a clown on the scene, but you're a little short on green? Well, it's time to take that clown frown to upside down town. The Webstone Corporation proudly presents Disposo, the disposable clown service. Pick from our roster of ex-cons and the temporarily unhoused who have been professionally trained at our free-range clown education camps. They'll promptly arrive at your child's party in full costume and makeup, carrying a special suitcase that only grown-ups can open. After their laugh-filled 30-minute set, your clown will hand over the case, which they are told contains their compensation. Instead, you will find a collectible ceremonial dagger and a 100% biodegradable body bag made of post-consumer waste. It only takes a few minutes to put down the clown, place the body inside the bag, and just deposit it at your nearest dumpster. No muss, no fuss. Get yourself a discount clown and bury all your troubles underground. That's the Disposo way.
That's exactly the kind of sponsor we should have.
Yeah. Hey, so, the check cleared, so it's all good.
Yeah, I guess, right? So what's their tagline? Like, your bank account won't frown when you put the clown down?
That's exactly it.
Or maybe don't pay the jester if he was a molester.
Yeah. Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, I was thinking, what if instead of the dagger, though, because here's the thing, like everybody gets direct deposit now, so it's like the check thing, but what if instead of a check, it was just their shift meal comes in the thing, so they're waiting to get fed, and it's something really weird like Clam's Casino or something like that.
Right.
And then they sit down and they just hungrily eat it because they're like starving because they've been eating all day.
Of course.
And then that's just poisoned. So you get like the same thing, just less blood. Maybe something like
just
that.
Just a little spaghetti carbonara sitting out at room temp for like several hours. It would be the same as poison.
Exactly. Or it's just a whole bunch of Taco Bell. But that's been left out for like a day or two.
Oh my God.
Well, I think that leads us to the Wayback Machine now, doesn't it?
Yes, tonight's Wayback Machine goes all the way back to the original air date of Elvis in Concert, which was October 3rd, 1977. As I previously said, Elvis was on CBS, Little House on the Prairie was on NBC, and something called San Pedro Beach Bums was on ABC. And it's important to note also that the 8 p.m. hour, Monday Night Football, kind of like what Elvis would have wanted. The number one movie in the country in its 19th smash week, Star Wars.
Oh, wow. There you go. See, I would have guessed Slapshot.
Was that 77?
I know my other guess is going to be 3 Days of the Condor, but I think that might have been earlier in the 70s.
Sure.
So, all right.
Annie Hall.
Yes.
But Star Wars, you heard of it?
No. You want to tell me a little bit about it?
That sucks. Number one album in the country, October 3rd, 1977. This is as normcore as it ever gets for us. Fleetwood Mac's Rumors.
I would have guessed something by the Atlanta Rhythm section.
But are you down with the Fleetwood Mac?
I don't mind the Fleetwood Mac. They're fine.
Yeah.
Are you into the Peter Green Fleetwood Mac? And then
I very much so. Yeah, I think that stuff rips. But I like all eras. I think Rumors is a banger. You know, kind of an unpopular opinion, I guess. But
no, man, I think it's good. It's a good band.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So that was the number one album.
Right. Number one single. You'll like this. Star Wars theme / Cantina Band by Miko. You know that medley?
I know exactly that. That was the number. See, okay, because
it's like the disco remix, right?
Yeah, the disco remix thing. See, now if I had to hazard a guess, I would have thought the Bee Gees, something by the Bee Gees in '77. Wouldn't that have been about that era? Or maybe a Fifth of Beethoven?
I love that one.
Yeah, we'll get into it later. We'll play that one after we get off air. So
Sure. Yeah. I need to hear that one again. Number one book in the country, October 77, The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien, which is a posthumously released collection of stories. And it also should be noted, I thought this was interesting that it was kind of around the same time. This show aired 2 weeks before the Leonard Skinner plane crash.
Oh, no kidding. Okay,
Yeah,
I guess I didn't realize that.
It was October 20th of that year, 3 days after the release of Street Survivors. Their private plane went down, hit a tree. Do you know why?
Hold on, let me think. Were they trying to go through a Walmart drive-thru for Subway? Was that it? I don't know. I have no clue. Like, take it down, man. We need a couple footlongs.
No, plane ran out of gas.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
You'd think you'd check before you left.
I don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't fly planes, but yeah.
Out of gas. I guess I didn't realize that that's what had happened.
Yeah, I had to look it up. I was like, could have been anything. Like inclement weather, you assume with these like small planes.
Something, hail or something.
Right.
Seagulls flying into the engines or something. I don't know.
Yeah, a whole flock of seagulls.
Oh, flock of seagulls here.
So that's it with the Wade Back Machine.
On that note, we're closing it up. Man, you could tell we had a break. We're really tight.
Yeah. We're very good at podcasting.
Yeah, very good. We're number one in podcasting this show. Well, the Wade Back Machine's over, but then that leads us to your favorite segment, which is Would You Believe?
Oh, brother.
Here we go. I got a couple of them, so strap in.
Sure.
All right, so would you believe that the song Moody Blue was originally in the set list, but they pulled it because Colonel Tom Parker, he wanted to wait to release the song after the special because he thought people wouldn't buy it if they'd already heard it on the special. Would you believe?
I don't believe that.
Yeah, it's false. Elvis just couldn't remember the damn lyrics. So they just
I read Elvis performed Moody Blue exactly once in his life.
Yeah, I don't know. All right. Would you believe that in June of 1977, Elvis called then President Jimmy Carter, hoping he could help his friend George Klein in a federal court case, but Carter had to hang up the phone on him because he couldn't understand what Elvis was talking about because he just kept rambling. Would you believe?
Yes, that is totally something Elvis would do.
Yeah, it's totally true. And Klein was later convicted of 4 counts of mail fraud. Yeah, pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah.
There you go. Oh, here's a crazy one. Would you believe that for Elvis's funeral, so many flowers were sent to the funeral that it was almost impossible to get fresh flowers in the United States for almost 2 weeks? Would you believe?
I would believe that.
Yeah, also true.
Wow.
There you go. Yeah. They say it's one of the largest flower purchasing days in American history.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what would have topped that, so I don't know. Would you believe that after Elvis was moved to Graceland, there was a bidding war for the burial plot where Elvis was originally buried at Forest Hill Cemetery? And a businessman named William Dawes Jr. won the battle. And I don't know how much it was, so I just put an undisclosed amount. Would you believe?
I absolutely would believe that.
You would?
Yeah.
No, that's false.
Oh.
But William Dawes Jr., he's actually buried there. He was a Revolutionary War hero. He was the guy who rode out just before Paul Revere. He was the first rider, and Paul Revere was the second rider. So there you go. So would you believe that there was a plot to steal Elvis's corpse and hold it for ransom? Would you believe?
I'm going to say I do not believe that. I think that's Lincoln.
No, it's true.
Oh, shit.
So 9 days after Elvis was buried in Memphis, 3 men were arrested after attempting to steal the corpse from the mausoleum at Forest Hill. The guys' names were Raymond Green, Eugene Nelson, and Ronnie Adkins, and they were all caught sneaking around Elvis's burial site. Although they say it was noted that the 3 seemed to lack the necessary tools to actually break into the mausoleum. but they tried to do it. And then this is kind of a twofer, which is, would you believe that the grave robbery may have been planned in some part by the Presley family?
Oh, geez. Yeah, what the hell? I will believe that.
Yeah, they actually say it might have been. So 2 decades after the heist attempt, the Ronnie Atkins character confessed that the entire plot was arranged by a corrupt sheriff, possibly on Elvis's family's behalf, because the family wanted to have Elvis buried at Graceland, but they weren't zoned for burial. The idea is that if they tried to steal the body, then they could say, like, hey, we needed more security, so we need to move him here. In September, the Memphis board allowed the family to move the body to Graceland. So he was reburied on October 2nd. So that's it. That's all of them. Would you believe? I think you did okay. I think you got...
I think I got 4 and I lost 2. So,
yeah, I think that's were you keeping score?
I was this time, just so we'd have something to talk about.
Well, that's it, man. That's the Would You Believe. So pretty good. I didn't know about that plot to steal his body.
That's crazy and pretty disgusting.
Pretty crazy. And you're right. I know that they did try to do that with Lincoln, too. So another thing those two have in common. I'm not sure what the other things are, but that's one now. So we got that. So keep a list if you don't have one.
Just a couple more thoughts, like random bits and bobbins at the end here. At the opening montage of the special, you see on a marquee, Elvis, King of Entertainment.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You do see that.
And, King of Rock and Roll, we've heard a million times. King of Entertainment, I don't think I've ever heard him referred to as that before. But an announcer from stage calls him that during the special. So when was that a thing?
Yeah, maybe he's rebranding.
Maybe.
Maybe it's because there were so many gospel songs, they didn't really call him King of Rock and Roll anymore. I don't know. Right. Maybe that's why.
And just one more thought. James Burton, Elvis's lead guitarist from 69 to the end. Mm-hmm. He's playing his telly, signature James Burton Telecaster.
Yeah, the pink paisley.
But he's also in a few shots playing something which I swear to God is an old BC Rich.
Oh, really?
I couldn't make it out because, the video quality is so poor. So there's really no hope of reading anything from the headstock. But it looks like one of those weird one-off models that BC Rich did in the 70s. Could totally be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. Here's the thing. You might peek into some of the other YouTube videos on there that has some of the footage. Because it might be way better quality. Didn't think about that, did you?
I'll ask your brother.
Okay, there you go. I tell you what, though, I think the big takeaway for me is I would think my default thought of an Elvis logo has changed permanently, having seen this now. Because it's really cool. It's really cool.
It is.
But it's definitely moved into the 70s. You can tell it's a late 70s kind of looking thing.
It's kind of like the Waylon Jennings logo a little bit, too.
Sure, a little bit like that. I don't know. Everybody had logos. That was the new thing. Instead of those curly Q letter, the Elvis Presley thing that he kind of had for a while. Normally, I know we bring up Kiss a lot on the show. Mm-hmm. But one thing is, I know they would have been out on tour in 77. And I'm curious, do you know if they had any crossover dates where they would have been around the same time in the same auditoriums as Elvis? Do you know?
As near as I can tell, the Love Gun tour didn't start until July of 77, which Elvis would have been done with his current tour. So, no crossovers. I'm sure they were playing a lot of the same venues. I found something here interesting. Kiss actually played the day Elvis died. They played a show in San Francisco at the Cow Palace.
I wonder what the mood was at that show.
Probably oblivious. These were definitely kids.
Yeah.
Capacity crowd of 14,500. And Paul Stanley did dedicate a song to Elvis from the stage. He says, "We're going to dedicate this last song to the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. Rock and roll all night and party every day." And that's a direct quote. If
the audience didn't necessarily have a reverence for Elvis, I think that the band definitely would have.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've talked about this. Yeah. Opening night that night, Cheap Trick.
Oh, cool. Nice. Yeah. But I think that probably wraps it up. Unless you've got anything else you want to talk about, we can wrap this one up, put it to bed.
Nah, I'm good.
Okay, good. Me too. Well, I will go over a couple of ways if you want to get in touch with us for any reason, whatever it might be. You can always email us at suspiciousmindspodcast77@gmail.com. Or if that's way too much to type in, you can always call or text us at the Suspicious Minds hotline, which is 773-389-4276. So that's a couple good ways to reach us. And what about social media, Wade?
Be like a cool kid and check us out on Instagram. You'll find us under Suspicious Minds Podcast. Do a lot of fun things there, trying to share a lot of fun photos and memorabilia and esoterica and just news about the podcast when there is news. You could also check us out on Facebook, like a senior citizen. We're at Suspicious Minds Podcast with Wade and Burl. Pretty easy to find. Not a whole lot going on there. I should change that someday. I feel like I say that every time, but...
You do actually say
whatever.
It. Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah. So, get on there. Let's party. Really, YouTube is where it's at for us these days.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to the YouTube channel and check us out there. I think if you were just now joining Facebook, you get a giant magnifying glass. Is what they give you. It's just like a special treat for that. So,
and a free bowl of soup.
Yeah, right. And some AARP magazine. You get 6 free months. So, excellent. Well, cool. I think that wraps it up. So, as always, I have been Burl.
And I am Wade, and I'll leave you with the words, I still live at home, and I have a fairly good job at the post office.
You wish.
I wish. That sounds great.
Yeah, right. All right. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah. Have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.